Hello, you're wrongin'. I'm going to get straight into this particular video because I've thought about this all week and I always felt that I would do something when it was proportionate, but more importantly, appropriate. And now we know that the Titan sub is no more. It was a catastrophic implosion. OceanGate's Titan sub, and I know this situation and subject is difficult for everyone, but we have to acknowledge the courage and the tenacity of the search and rescue teams, the courage of those that felt they needed to go and see the Titanic wreck at the bottom of the ocean. We now know that there are no bodies to recover. The implosion was instant, we are being told by the experts. But that brings more questions. And I'm going to ask some. I've got half a dozen questions I'm going to ask at the end of my take on what happened to OceanGate's Titan submarine or submersible. My dad was a merchant seaman all of his life. And he always said to me on numerous occasions, Adrian, never underestimate the power of the sea. He'd been overboard a few times, although, he was a surface boy. He was never a submariner. And to give you an indication of the kind of pressures there are near the Titanic wreck, it's about 6,000 pounds per square inch. So what that would mean is if you were near the Titanic wreck, the pressure would compress your lungs inside your rib cage from its current size down to the size of your Apple EarPod charging case. Instantly. Now, what we know for fact and for sure is that the OceanGate Titan sub launched at 0600 hours on Sunday, local time. 1 hour 45 minutes later, all comms were lost. Now, the US Navy, bizarrely, are saying that they may have heard the implosion. And I'll get further into that in a moment. The debris field is consistent with the location where the comms were lost. 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic wreck. Maybe they could see the wreck, maybe they couldn't. But at that depth, there is no natural light. So my first question, and anybody that's watched any of my videos will know that I'm a cynical old tart and I absolutely never take what I'm being told at face value. In 2023, we know there is always something behind what we are being told, and we will get to that in a moment. Now, the Titan sub, OceanGate's Titan sub, weighed 23,000 pounds. It could reach depths of 13,123 feet, which is almost the depth of, just past the depth of the Titanic wreck. There was a crew of 5, a pilot, content expert, and 3 paying customers. The paying customers were Shahzada and Suleiman Dawood. Hamish Harding, the pilot, Paul-Henri Nargolet, which I believe he's been down to the Titanic wreck about 37 times. And the content expert was Stockton Rush, head man of OceanGate. It had a top speed of 3 knots. But here's where things get very interesting. I will guarantee you've not been told ever about the safety feature that the Titan sub had. Yes, it was made of carbon fibre and titanium, but I'll guarantee you were never told about a proprietary real-time hull health monitoring system, or the RTM for short. What does that mean? It means that the Titan sub was being analysed in real time. So the analysis of the RTM system would analyse the pressure on the vessel and the integrity of the structure. Do you understand what that means? That when the comms were lost, they lost the analysis on the pressure of the vessel and the integrity of the structure. So those on the surface that were monitoring this knew. Now I'll get to the questions I'm personally going to ask in just a moment. But we'll go to James Cameron, who's an expert in this field. He's actually been down to Challenger Deep in his own designed submersible. And within 90 minutes of hearing about the Titan sub's demise, because he knows people that are fellow travellers and discoverers and explorers, he knew within 90 minutes that the Titan sub was on descent, that they were at 3,500 feet, that the comms and tracking was lost. So there's a transponder used to track the sub on the descent and on the bottom of the ocean. It's fully autonomous, which means it's its own system. It doesn't rely on anything else in the sub, and it's in its own pressure housing and has its independent own battery power. So everything, that transponder, irrespective of what happened to the sub, that transponder should have been going. Its own power source, pressure housing, it's its own autonomous system. But as I said to you, the sub lost comms and tracking at exactly the same time. James Cameron is quoted as saying he knew the sub was gone. At that point, that was Monday morning for him. He said that the acoustic networks around the globe, some's for research, some intelligence. Would that be military, perchance? And those acoustic networks confirmed that there was a loud bang at the same time as the Titan sub lost its communications. James Cameron confirms there's never, ever, ever been an implosion with people in it. He questions whether there was cycling fatigue for the sub, and was that a failure over time? Now, James Cameron, the expert, the director of Avatar and Titanic, the film, he believes that the occupants would have heard the delamination when water ingress starts to force the layers of the fibres apart. Theoretically, he says, you can hear it. And I quote, "I believe they heard it with their own ears, not through the sensor system, in the last moment of their lives." Direct quote from James Cameron. James Cameron believes that he went to Challenger Deep in his own designed sub. It took him 7 years to design it and build it. Now, this Titan sub was a wound filament composite cylinder with 2 titanium caps on each end. He told designers of the Titan submersible, "You're going to die down there if you dive that thing." So James Cameron was a very insightful man, and he told them what was the outcome, more likely outcome, was going to be. Now, I know there's a lot going on. We've had a week of it. But I'm now going to ask some questions that maybe you're asking yourself. Who knows when we'll get the answer? We may be told that they're going to crunch the numbers or look at the data and find out what was going on. But it looks like the American Navy and the Coast Guard and those courageous and tenacious teams that were working on the search and rescue actually knew that this was a recovery, not a search and rescue. But when you've got the whole world watching you, as I've said in previous videos, it's better to travel in hope than arrive disappointed. And I don't mean that flippantly. It means that the news reportage all week has been managed. We haven't actually been given a truth. US Navy said they heard the implosion. James Cameron is quoted as saying, acoustic networks heard it. So they knew at the beginning of the week. So there is a lot going on. There is a lot to come to terms with. The data will be studied. But what I want to say to you is, I think our first consideration has to be to the families and friends of those that perished, and that they should be allowed to grieve. So I will end this particular sad vlog with a couple of questions. The most important one is, why were we told that the acoustic buoys that were dropped by the P3 Canadian planes, why were we told they heard banging every 30 minutes? Now that would be a natural anomaly. There's nothing in nature that can put an alarm clock on and say, right, we're going to make a noise every 30 minutes. Just doesn't happen in nature. So that's what gave everyone that was watching the scenario unfold, that's what gave us all hope that something extraordinary was about to happen. So I wonder when they're going to give us an answer to that. Are they ever going to give an answer to what were the acceptable risk calculations, risk management? Did anybody calculate the risk of this particular voyage? How many times, in other words, progressive damage, how many times did the Titan submersible visit the Titanic? Question 4, how was the pressure hull breached? Was it a tiny flaw? And why? Will we get that from the data investigation, the data interrogation? Because it has. The hull was breached. But by what and how? Why was the Titan submersible not certified? Everybody else was telling it. There were some experts in the field that were fellow explorers and wrote a combined letter to the Ocean Gate company pleading with them to get it certified. I also want to know why the initial British Royal Navy help was declined. And it got to lunchtime yesterday and I was thinking to myself, so we've gone past the oxygen availability. 8 minutes past 12, that's when we were told by the mainstream media and everybody that they'd been told that that's when the oxygen would run out. So why would you not want the Royal Navy out there as quickly as possible to help out? Well, if you look at it, the Royal Navy has the expertise, the wherewithal and the equipment to go deeper than the Titanic wreck and recover things. Recover, not rescue. And who pays for the rescue effort? We've had an international rescue, or attempt rescue. It's now an international recovery. Some of the various teams are standing down, some are still there. But we now know the British weren't needed initially, but they will be needed for possibly some kind of recovery. They say there's 5 pieces of wreckage, debris, at the bottom of the ocean. I'm sure they want to retrieve that and have a look at it. It's been a catastrophic implosion, but some of the real truths have not come out in the reportage this week. I wanted to show you this. It's a guy called David Marquet is being interviewed and quoted in a lot of the news media. And David Marquet was the captain of the worst performing nuclear submarine in the American fleet. He took it from zero to hero, the worst to the best in the fleet. And this is his story as to how he did that. Now, I've seen David Marquet speak, a very, very, very erudite speaker. And his book, Turn the Ship Around, is a bestseller. And I've been there when he's given a speech to an organisation, and the organisation wanted to adopt his methods. So if there is ever a book that I can recommend to you on multiple layers, it's that one, Turn the Ship Around, David Marquet. So now we get to the end of the week and a catastrophic tragedy has occurred. But we weren't told everything, and I wonder why. The surface had the data, the Navy had the data, and we were told to give us hope that they could hear banging. Certainly Tuesday into Wednesday, they could hear banging every 30 minutes. Do you think there's other things that we're not being told? What would be your question? And I would like to know your thoughts in the comments, please. My name's Adrian Allen. Thank you for your likes, your subscriptions, but most of all, your indulgence. and I'll see you in the next video.